Twilighters. Dang, I'm so glad you're here with us. Spending your most valuable currency, your time, your life with us. Goes without saying, we do this with love, do the liking, do the subscribing. Come. You've watched. Why have you not subscribed? Have we not pleased you? Well, I hope we have, because we're going to go back in time. Seems like this subject really lends itself to going back and finding some of these old traditions that are somewhat sentimental to us as Americans. Now, there used to be a thing we used to do, children, called storytelling. There would sometimes be a fire. People had fireplaces in their homes where you would put combustibles and you light them on fire, and it was quite a pleasing effect. Dancing flame. It was very warm and radiant. And one might adjust his sweater and say, well, all right, children, gather around, grab your hot toddies and your eggnog, and let old Papa tell you a story of the days of yore. So we're going to do that this year, starting with the year 1939. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce myself, David Rogerson, my very fine and capable co-host, Mr. Casey Fields.
Merry Christmas, Twilighters. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Festivus. Happy Diwali. What else? Kwanzaa. But thanks for joining us today,
Alex, too.
For this very special Christmas episode. We're going to bring some cool stories your way. So, like you said, whip up a batch of eggnog and throw a Yule log on the fire, and we're going to jump right into it.
Let's get it on. Starting in the year of my father's birth, 1939. He was born on tax day, which is pretty funny. Well, this is a well-worn fable, but it being Christmas, aren't they the best? So, children, we're going to reach back for our first Christmas story that is brought to you by, of course, the wonderful book Reflections by dear friend of the channel, Lynn Fromme, and also controversial book, Newell Emmons, Manson in his own words. It's related in both of these books. So we're going to give Newell a break, but Lynn especially tells the story in such a way, and she's actually told it to me personally.
Wow.
And it was very emotional. It was a very moving thing, the way she told it. And it was one Christmas, little Charlie's only gift came via his grandmother, Nanny Maddox. And this was because he'd been tossed around quite a bit at that point. He was between relatives. They were there in Virginia, West Virginia, usually Wheeling in that area. And Charlie had been bounced around a lot because of his terrible parenting by his mother. And so there were no presents because there was no understanding that he was going to be at Christmas. So his grandmother, just quick thinking, dipped in one of the kids' rooms, right? Shucked one of their articles, gave it a quick wrap, and then handed it to Charlie. He opens it. It was his only gift. All the other kids had opened their gifts, and it was a Superman hairbrush. And you got to relate. This is somewhere between 1939, as we say, maybe 1941, depending on, how you interpret the actual timeline. But he goes tearing it open. He's super excited. All these other kids get, bicycles and nice toys and board games and different things they were interested in and books, and whips it open. And grandmother looked at him and said, if you brush your hair with it, you'll be able to fly like Superman. Because he's looking at the brush, it's kind of a shitty brush.
It's a brush.
Yeah, and then if you look at it, we of course have to Google it in modern times. Like, dude, it's a pretty sorry looking fucking brush. Even in retrospect, man, it's a shitty little brush, just a generic fucking brush. And the thing, what's it got? A shitty little sticker. It's not even like some the new stuff's all zoomy,
Mhm. Yeah.
the fresh shit for the kids. Nah, it was a very depressing little piece. He'll be able to fly like Superman. So then, Charlie was hip to it. So then later in life, he related to Lynn, young fool that I was. I carried that brush around with me for days, constantly brushing my hair. I'd jump off porches, anything with a little elevation. Got his brush with him, Probably combed it a couple times right before he was going to do a special feat. Like, oh man, need some extra power, but a couple of extra brushes in. So he really expected to soar in the air like Superman. I hear the whole
Getting that little Clark Kent, what's that with a wave?
swirl?
Yeah.
That one swirl was the man. And then the cape was the bomb. We used to sometimes, we just button the top button on your shirt and let the other ones be open.
Yeah.
Before the suicidals took it. Yeah, it was a cape. You'd run with it. Yeah. Like,
homeboy.
Mortale. So the neighborhood kids had all their nice toys and all kinds of good shit going on. And they just laughed their asses off at him, he said they were super spoiled, shitty kids, and they just laughed at him and his sorry ass, ugly fucking brush. And so he stole their little toys and burned them in a wood pile. Apparently got really pissed. It was like, fuck you kids after Christmas. I got gypped on this fucking brush. I'm not flying anywhere. This thing's a hunk of shit. My grandma may be in on the, you know what I mean? It's like when I was a child, I would feel like you're all in on it, aren't you?
Yeah.
It being my frustration, my not feeling up to snuff that day. You're a little kid, you're full of chemicals, maybe, or just having a bad day, or maybe somebody bit your head off. Who knows? But just you look around and you start counting who might be in your corner. And that's a lonely son bitch.
Hey, Johnny, what'd you get there for Christmas? Let me see that.
Oh, I got a beautiful new bike. I got a little wooden Indian. I got a bow and arrow. So he just gathered the shit up with, probably waited around, devious little bastard that he was, waited around. This is what I would have done. Hey, wait around till they're fucking in sleep because, they have to have nice parents. I was talking about this recently. My wife was so sad to hear me talk like this because she jokes around and says, that she'll catch me doing some really homeless ass shit. You know what I mean? Like, I love taking a nap in my truck. I don't know, dude. It's like,
those are the best.
In there. It's like, she's like, man, you're just homeless at heart. It was like grabbing Ranger Dick Powell, the dog. She's like, she saw him laying there and she's like, oh, I see it now. He's a little homeless. He's homeless at heart too. So you guys are parallel hobos out there. So, I would have waited around, because I didn't have a nice family. Because I was explaining about, we were talking about, she was listening to somebody's podcast about religion and how these people were really angry. And she didn't understand it, because she was raised in a really nice, not necessarily her household, but her town and everything.
Thankfully, yep.
Yeah, well, I felt really put upon. And so I would be pissed. I'd hate kids. Your parents got a nice haircut. You know how much a fucking haircut costs? Was what I would have heard. They've got new cool shoes, ride a nice bike. Oh, dude, that shit hurt. I hated those kids. Fucking Tad Marsh at Murray Junior High, you fucker. He had nice hair. His teeth and shit. His dad, he was into golfing. Who the fuck knows about golfing? Who names their kid Tad Marsh? It seems like an event that would happen in like a slough or something. It's a Tad Marsh. It's like a title event. But anyway, so these kids, I would get really mad and I would do dirt shit like that too. So I could see him like, plotting on these fucking kids, waiting at night because I got to be in bed because they're going to do well in school, right? No one's watching Charlie. He got a shitty Superman brush, right? Fuck you. He's slipping out the window. Had a fucking bonfire with their shit. Just so the kids were mad. And I guess they came around, because you think about kids and they gang up. And they
Mm,
take a day or two later
yeah,
and they
yeah.
kind of gang up. Hey! They come and yell at you on your porch. Well, I guess they did all that. And then some of them were like really like crushed.
Mm,
You murder shit. But the cops showed up apparently. And that was some of his first engagement with cops, right?
yeah.
Around Christmas,
Yeah, just a little kid.
fucking around.
Wow.
And you just think about, as a parent, as anybody decent, right? How heartbreaking is that he's become such fodder, like you
Mm,
just throw it out. What am I, fucking Charlie Manson over here? What the hell? Right? But you really think about how he got there and just how just sad and
mhm.
shitty and terrible that must have been to see this poor little boy just being treated that way over and over and over. And you think like, you see some people that maybe they're not going to
His mom was in jail at the time. His uncle was in jail, right?
right.
Yeah.
That was the ketchup heist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys.
Dad's out of the picture,
Yeah.
right? So he's got his grandma and he's got his aunt and uncle.
And he's been bounced around, barely shows up there. But what had happened was his mother, they would roll Johns. She would act like she was going to sleep with these guys. And then the brother would come busting in the room and stick them up. Well, they were so broke and stupid, they didn't even have a weapon.
Mhm.
He stuck them up with a bottle of ketchup,
Yeah.
like stuck in his ribs, like, ah. And then they're in jail for 2 years behind that. And this kid is just left to the wolves, man.
It's rough.
But I just love that, like I say, usually you just go scrolling through a story rather quickly and you don't really experience that. But how much hurt?
Yeah, I usually don't get too sentimental about Manson, but man, this one is rough. Like Christmas is really for the kids, right? It's all about the magic of the season and them opening up Christmas gifts and that anticipation of Santa's coming,
Not a care in the
Yeah,
world. You're not
and
supposed to have a care, understand values, or somebody's better than me, or
yeah.
you got something nicer, or I'm this, or you're that.
And I
Supposed
used to
bring
think like
everyone together,
I
right?
used to think getting clothes was pretty bad, right? But getting a hairbrush, man, that's probably much worse.
Yeah, I've gotten toothbrushes.
Yeah, wow.
You know what I mean? Like my dad didn't even really deal with it. Like once my parents split, that was kind of it for
Mhm.
any kind of celebrations. My mom did a couple birthdays for us here and there. Then we did some Christmases later, but
Yeah.
yeah, for a few years there, it was very, very much interrupted.
Mhm.
Which just you think, man, dude, that really hurts a child and just breaks their spirit
Mm.
in any sense of magic or good feelings. It's just really, I don't know. That one just really bothers me.
Now this hairbrush got brought up later on, right? As
Yeah,
an
it
adult,
did.
what did Charlie say about it?
Well, him and Nick were talking. Like, why don't you tell that part? Because I don't know Nick like you know Nick, and we're actually trying to have Nick on the program.
I've never asked Nick about this. This got brought
This is-
up on TLB years ago, from I believe a phone call that Manson was talking about. Someone asked him, hey, Charlie, did you ever receive any kind of funds or financial benefit from the Manson file? And Charlie allegedly said, can a brother at least get a hairbrush?
Oh,
So I don't know. I don't know if it's true. I actually can't remember actually hearing the audio, but I'll have to ask Nick about that one of these days.
dude, that shit is
Yeah.
so clowning.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, I mean, you can't get 2 books you paid for.
And I don't think he can even get funds in jail. Like, right. I guess Nick could have put money on his books.
Yeah. Well,
know?
if
Yeah.
that's the thing in jail, if someone's bitching about you not doing them up and they're in jail, I mean, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. And even with that, don't you have to like buy it from a catalog or a website? It's not like if I wanted to get my buddy a book or something, I couldn't just send it to him in
No.
jail, right? No,
No, it
it's
has
gotta
to come
come
through
from
approved vendors. And
yeah.
that's the whole thing. They have a chokehold on everything. And that's what's been interesting about the bilking of California prisoners and the whole California penal system is just so flippin' filthy. But I thought that was pretty cute, though. Gonna probably get a hairbrush. Come on, here. Like, you just think I'm this like little kid because, that's the thing. When we talk about Charlie or any of the people that were part of the alleged family who survive, um, when people come to them, it's rarely in the context of something that would be comfortable. And the person doing the approaching is blind to it. There's no way they can see that there's almost no tactful way to do what you're trying to do and to broach these people's privacy. It's like when you say something like, I'll do respect, you know what I mean? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, dude, you're doing the wrong thing. Or, well, I hate to bother you. Well, then how about you fuck off? And then so you think about all the people that wanted something and then, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people have nothing by and large. A lot of these people have done strong prison sentences. They're living very hand to mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to lean in like on Charlie, who's supposed to have had a death sentence and serving life in prison. And you want something from the fucking guy. This is incredible.
All right, so we're going to go to our next Christmas story, which comes from chapter 3 of Susan Atkins' book, Child of Satan, Child of God. And so she said she couldn't remember if she was 3 or 4 years old when this happened. I'm leaning towards 4, which would make it about 1952. So Susan got spanked that Christmas by her dad. And here's what she said. I got caught in my first venture as a thief. It was Christmas time. We were at grandmother's house. We called her Momo. Without announcement, I walked to the corner store with nothing more than curiosity in my mind. It was a fascinating place. I walked in and unintentionally quiet and noticed, in fact, nobody seemed to be around. And there was a candy counter with every kind of gum and penny candy imaginable lying right there in front. Again, with little forethought, I reached up and helped myself to 4 penny Tootsie Rolls and strolled back out, still unnoticed. Back at Grandma's house, I opened up one of the Tootsie Rolls and bit joyfully into it. My dad watched me open the wrapper and wolf down that first piece before asking me, Susan, where did you get the candy? A chill gripped me. At the store, she said, I found 4 pennies on the ground and bought candy with those. My father didn't accept the story, and I eventually acknowledged that I had stolen the candy. He took me by the hand and rather roughly walked me back to the store. Inside, he said to the elderly store owner, my daughter here took 4 pieces of candy from your store a few minutes ago. Now she wants to return 3 pieces, and here's a penny for the 4th. The old man looked at me. He had a white, bushy mustache, very soft brown eyes. And he smiled and his eyes twinkled. Anger showed in my father's face and voice. What do you say, Susan? He asked. I'm sorry I took the candy without paying. Susan later wrote that she looked at the man in the neck rather than his eyes, and she was humiliated. And I like this story. One, because it's a human story about this person that was later convicted of multiple murders. And, but here's her as a child. And I think almost every one of us at some point in our lives have probably taken a little something here or there, whether it be a piece of candy or another kid's pencil or whatever it may be. But I thought it was funny because she kind of creepy crawled her way into this store, right?
Yeah.
As a 4-year-old, right? Steals
Early
the piece of candy.
foreshadowings.
Yeah, gets back to the house, pops it in her mouth, and thinks that she's just in the free. And good old dad is right on top of it.
That's just, I really am starting to feel a little bit more for Susan these days. And she always really rubbed me the wrong way. I've been around girls that I believe she was kind of like, and they're just not my cup of tea, you know? And the more I read about people's accounts of her, and people want to take pot shots at her. And it's so funny because, who stuck up for her is Lynn.
Mm,
Lynn has stuck up for her, and it made me look at her differently because why would the most loyal, kind, loving, quote unquote, Manson girl stick up for the loudmouth, lout, loser, slut girl, basically, who brought all kinds of heat on the ranch,
mhm.
who brought all kinds of badness around, and drama, and was constantly bickering and dickering with Charlie and fucking around and coming and going. I made me understand Lynn's extreme empathy and how much there must have been there and why the place was so attractive. Because you think about the kind of pain just from that, you would carry around, knowing later that her mother died, knowing later that her dad became this just quavering drunk in the
Mhm.
corner, and the way she spoke to him allegedly, and just things like that. It's like really hard foreshadowing.
Mhm.
And as a father myself, I see the children in the world, and these children in particular, and it's heartrending, and it's a very hard thing to take in.
There's another part of that story that I like because it kind of harkens back to around 1968, 69, when Charlie and Susan, and I believe some other girls, were over in Shoshone. So they were entering Death Valley from the east instead of more traditionally what you guys know as going through Goal or Wash. They were coming in through the Anvil
Yep,
Springs area.
yeah,
And
Mango Pass and all
yep,
that.
yeah, Mangle Pass. So they stopped over in Shoshone at the little store. There's only one store in Shoshone. I went down there last May, and I'll get to that. So Charlie and Susan stopped, and they got what they called Zuzus, which is candies. And I guess Charlie had a nice sweet tooth. And I've heard that Zuzus is like an old prison term for candy. But yeah, so they bought some Tootsie Rolls at the Charles Brown Market in Shoshone.
That's awesome.
And then they went out next
Awesome.
door. There's a cemetery, and they got high on some LSD, and they were placing these little Tootsie Rolls on tops of the graves in Shoshone and dancing around the graveyard. And so last May when I went out there, I had to stop by old Charles Brown Market and buy me some Tootsie Rolls.
You gotta have
And then
them.
I walked through that cemetery, and sure enough, man, right there, Sheriff Don Ward, who's the Antioch County and had his battles with the Manson families during those years. But
He's interred there?
yeah,
No way.
yeah,
You saw his grave?
yeah. So it was a kind of a
Wow,
surreal
cool.
moment. I'm eating Tootsie Rolls in this graveyard where this huge character Don was buried, basically walking around an area where Charlie and Susan were having these Tootsie Rolls. Yeah, kind of surreal moment, you know.
I think that's what's really sad about the loss of Barker Ranch is that, it's just such a full, rich experience that the whole place was there.
Mhm,
And George had fixed it up so nice and everything, and
mhm.
put glass in it again and made it like a real livable, nice cabin.
Yeah.
And all those touchstones are gone, and people are, actively damaging those areas purposefully.
Mhm.
Some people feel it's the park, some people feel it's outside agitators, but
The first time I went there, I had to go in the hard way, right? I wanted to go in the way that they originally went when they took the school bus, green and white school bus through there, and still driving through Mangle Pass in a Jeep 4x4 that is lifted and had great ground clearance and everything. I'm just blown away how they were able to get that bus through. Obviously, they weren't able to ever get it out of there. Eventually, it made its way out by being dynamited and drove by a couple miners,
People are so
But,
crazy, dude.
if you ever get the chance to go out to Barker, I suggest going in through the eastern way and taking the long road through I don't know, through the Butte Valley and everything, Mingle Pass, and then go out the traditional way, which is Golder Wash.
Down into Ballarat.
Yeah.
They've got that all fixed up pretty nice now. If you haven't been out there recently, there's a store out there and the people are very receptive to the whole thing. Because sometimes, people will clam up pretty hard, especially like out in Inyo County, places like that. You show any interest in Manson or the case, and that's a real good way to have people not want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
Now, have you got any more of these stories? Because I'm really enjoying this. Pulling up to the old Yule log here. And
yeah, we got a couple more.
I don't know if you guys ever did this or even know what storytelling is, but people would actually sit around, and I caught the tail end of this with my family, and people who were visiting, well, Uncle James, what have you been doing? Tell us about this last year. Like, everyone would kind of tell a story, and you kind of go around the room, and it was a lot of fun at Christmas.
So Twilighters, we're going to keep it with the Christmas theme, but we're going to go to a break real quick and say a quick thank you to our sponsors.
Ooh, are you announcing a word from our sponsors?
The Red Onion, the Bay Area's finest hamburgers, located at 11900 San Pablo Avenue in El Cerrito. Tell them Twilight Garage sent you.
Welcome back, Twilighters. We're here telling Christmas stories. Wish we had a little fire going, but it's still nice and toasty in here. We're here with our producer, Alex, and just enjoying this Christmas week together.
Absolutely. They say it's a little dead here on YouTube, and you guys aren't up to much, but I have a feeling you binge watchers, might give us a little bit of love. And you folks up there cooking, you don't always have to keep an eye on us. We can just be in the background, sharing your Christmas traditions and being a part of your life, because we want to be there next year. We want to thank everyone in this community who's putting good effort in. If your heart is in this case, you've got some information, you've got some love, we really respect you. We want to thank you. And again, especially for joining us, Twilighters, we're going to get back to these Christmas stories because it is a rich tradition. It's like hanging the stockings. We need to bring that one back. So if y'all aren't doing it at home, hopefully you can gain some inspiration here. Now let's get into, what is the year? Is it 61?
Yeah, 1961.
Wonderful.
I'm going to tell a little Christmas story that was shared in a Manson blog article by George Stimson in 2018, where he tells a little story about Bobby Beausoleil and some trouble that he got in one Christmas.
That handsome rascal.
So again, we're in the year 1961, and Bobby said it was just after Christmas, and my friends and I went out into one of our homemade jalopies, and we were building these cars, and we usually took them down to this dry riverbed and race these cars, and none of us were old enough to drive at the time legally. One night he went out and got crazy and just kind of terrorized the neighborhood. And one of the things they did was they vandalized this lawn Christmas decoration set up.
And it's like a nativity scene. There's like,
and so they took the cardboard reindeer and they hammered them onto the side of this truck, or what they described like a van truck that they found out behind this gas station.
That's awesome.
And he said that and turned it into a circus van with reindeer flying across the sides. 2 hours later, the sheriff's department pulled into the gas station, and there was the evidence was in plain view, and we all got busted.
Oh,
And I like this story because in the late 90s, my buddies and I one time were doing a similar thing. We were driving around my buddy's pickup truck after hitting some in and out that night. And there was one neighbor, there's like always one neighbor house decorating blue and white lights, right?
Oh, the icy.
That's the Jew house.
Yes.
Right? So they had the menorah, a giant 6 feet tall menorah in the front yard. And just being stupid kids, we grabbed that menorah, threw it in the back of the pickup truck, and drove off. And we got it back to the garage, and we started freaking out. We're like, first of all,
hate crime.
hate crime.
Hate crime. Whoops,
Yeah.
our bad.
Yeah.
We didn't mean Jew. We meant Hebraic. Whoops. My bad. We were just. Oh. Is that what the blue meant? My bad.
So we disassembled this menorah and stacked these pieces of plywood about 2 feet high. And we were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to hide this thing?
You're going to leave with one candle each? Like,
so
no one will notice we only have one candle
So we
each.
ended up sticking this pile of plywood, this menorah, in the back of my friend's 1982 Cutlass Supreme. Right. And for a year, he drove around with the menorah in the back of his car.
So sweet, Cuddy Mac. No. Oh, dude, those Cuddy Supremes.
Body mucked up with it.
Bro.
So a year later, we reassembled the menorah and we took it back to the guy's house, put it on his front lawn like it never happened before. Yeah. So thankfully, the statute of limitations is up on this hate crime.
So that,
I can talk about it.
That's a weight crime. You waited a year to take it back, so it's a weight crime. There's no hate. We were just, just testing their faith a little. Oh, see, I just thought those people were super suave. I didn't realize they were Jews.
Yeah, that's the celebrating Hanukkah.
Yeah, because they would always have like a silver tree
Yeah.
and the blue.
Blue and white.
I just thought they were, maybe a little white in the loafers. I didn't know they were Jewish. Sorry, my bad.
Colorblind.
Stop. Here we are, Twilighters. I'm driving poor Alex knows we're going to get kicked off the internet. So the year 1963, another pathetic, fucking sad story from Susan Atkins. It's even in the same chapter. We couldn't even get out of that chapter. Another sad, shitty Christmas story from a different year. So sad. Her book, of course, the famous Child of Satan, Child of God. I always kind of thought that was a heavy metal record. So midway through her sophomore year of high school, her mother was dying of cancer at their home. She wrote, that night, Mom seemed to be smiling all the time. She even laughed out loud when she and Dad were talking alone. Now you got to think, if your mother's laughter, it's something that you would note many years later. It's something that had become absent in your household. And you think about this girl, young teenage girl. I think she was 14 when her mom died, something like that, 13, 14. And that hurts to hear. And knowing how much a little girl needs her mother. It seemed that her room had gone from gray to bright blue, yellow and pink, and even orange. So that's what, like her spirit?
I wonder, yeah.
Because I've heard that. So that's not really clear in this. But again, it adds to the overall sorrowful picture that is Susan Atkins' terrible childhood. It was the third week in December when the young people in the choir met at the church to go caroling. I was happy when I joined them, ready to go to the houses of the old people and entertain them with carols. We piled into 3 cars and set off in the cold, biting air. There was no snow, but it was cold. The kids said very little as we drove along until we reached my school. They saw me look at the school, and traces of smile began to show on their faces. They were secretive. We turned the corner onto my street. I knew where we were going. Instantly, my eyes filled with tears. I was unable to see. The car stopped in front of my house. The kids put their fingers to their lips and said, "Be quiet now. I want to surprise her." They had come to sing for my dying mother. I was crying openly as I rushed into the house and told Mom to look out the window onto the patio. They were there, 14 teenagers, boys and girls, forming a semicircle outside the window. We turned on the outside lights, and they began to sing Silent Night.
Wow.
Tears streamed down my mother's face. Dad was crying too. I grabbed Steve's hand and squeezed tight. We all joined hands, laughed and cried, laughed and applauded as they sang 6 of the prettiest Christmas carols I had ever heard. The kids left without me, and I stayed with Mom for several minutes. She was smiling and happy, but she was quiet. She took my hand and drew me to her. "Dear little Susan," she said softly. "Dear little Susan, it's been so hard on you." She looked at me silently for a moment. "I've asked God to let me stay with you until the new year." I was suddenly stone cold. "I'm sure he will," she smiled. "He's been so good to us tonight. I'm sure he'll let us have these holidays together." My mother died January 9th, 1964.
Wow.
So she was 13.
Couple weeks later.
13, right?
Wow.
And that's where we got Susan Atkins. So
I'm so glad she got that moment with her mom, though. That was a gift.
and you just think about all that woman was put through as a young lady, all the things she put herself through, put her family through, and put these other people through.
Mm-hmm.
And so many young people have just been disposed of in that way. Like her mother died, her father just became a quavering drunk. And then she just became a girl of the streets, moved up to San Francisco, became an exotic dancer, if you will, part-time prostitute, nude dancer. And then that's when she met Charlie there on Lion and
It sounds like she was connected with a good group of kids, though, back at that time, you know?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it was around the church.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. A lot of these children came from quite fine backgrounds. And it's when you lose your foundation that these openings happen in your life that can be really tragic. And for her, losing her mother, it just seems like the most horrible and horrific thing. It seems like it was the worst time it could possibly.
And some of you Twilighters, I think, have probably gone through this as well, right? You've lost loved ones during the holiday seasons, and the holidays just aren't the same as they used to be, right? Our hearts go out to you. You're in our prayers, and we're sorry for your loss. And we just ask that you're able to get some kind of joy out of this season.
And that's why
Yeah.
we're pushing on and doing this thing. Like if you're in the kitchen doing some dishes, we can be there with you and be of any type of comfort or solace. I'm sure glad to be that for you. And then again, as always, the victims are in our hearts. And without their sacrifices, we wouldn't have known about this case. We wouldn't have known about these people. And we wouldn't have got to learn some of these life lessons. Because we're finding out now that Susan probably didn't actually do any stabbing, that she helped and was there and probably spoke some of the words she said she did. But the way she's always been portrayed, super monstrous,
cutting out a baby, which is totally
That-
false.
Right. But
Yeah.
that was, well, even Quincy Jones at one point in one of these specials said that they had cut the baby out and that she was swinging it around by the umbilical cord.
Wow.
I mean, people have these like really gory fantasies.
It's like
truth-
the autopsies pictures are available on the internet. It's like you could see that Sharon was in, her belly was intact, right?
and
No,
it
no
was-
harm was done to the child except for the loss of the mother, which led to, unfortunately, the baby's death. No, it's tragic. I just think it's important, though, for us to try to correct the narrative where we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's like I say, we've all been in our own pain in the holidays. And like I say, it's not to gloss over the victim's suffering, because the way they died was horrific enough. We don't need to add anything. No spice needs to be added to this. Just like these characters, when you think about the words that were allegedly uttered to Sharon Tate, we've heard those words
Mhm.
a million times, right? Very standard narrative. I have no sympathy for you, bitch. You're going to die. And that is coming from such a place of pain. Like,
Mm.
even if you didn't know what had happened, to hear a girl in her early 20s say something like that to another woman in her 20s, that menacingly,
Mhm.
that's from a place of great pain. And then to realize you're holding her hands as Tex Watson is doing what Tex Watson is doing.
Mhm.
But this all came from somewhere. And that's the whole point of this thing, and where we're going to get to now. The last one.
Yeah, I have some more too after you're done.
The last one.
So
For
wait,
me-
real quick before you start, I just want to say, if you're going through that kind of thing right now, if you're dealing with heartache, melancholy, and it's just the holiday seasons are rough for you, I encourage you to do what you can to artificially convince yourself, bring yourself into hopefully a little bit of joy. Put on some Christmas music, throw on a Hallmark movie if you have to. I mean,
whatever it takes. You
yeah,
need, hey, you
go
need a couple
watch some of those holiday
festive
movies
beverages.
that you watched as a kid. Last night I watched Uncle Buck and I watched Christmas Vacation. And when I'm not feeling in the Christmas spirit, I tend to put stuff like that on. It's a Wonderful Life.
We need
stuff that-
comfort,
yeah.
and that's why we're doing what we can. And I hope it's not too corny telling these stories and saying things like this. But right now, I'm about to get a little upset because I'm looking over here at a shrine built to someone who had been very good to me when he was alive, and his name was Jeff Phillips, and he was known primarily as a great professional skateboarder from the Dallas, Texas area, but he was a personal friend and just a really great mentor and generous, wonderful, older master. And he took his life at Christmas, and it has always been hard. You know, the holidays, it's rough, you know, and that's why we do service. And this is a form of service that we can be here for you and we can relate some of these stories. And I've got a little more sympathy for Susan, who is not my favorite. But in the year 1967, we find ourselves, are you in the middle? You're,
No, go for
oh,
it.
whoa, what do you got?
No.
Oh, you're 68. These are such a great cue cards, and we've just been flubbing them. I don't know what. We're so together, but it's like the more together we are, the more buttery the fingers become. Every Christmas is a gift. It's not a well-known thing. When you told me this, I pictured it, because one of my favorite passages in Lynn Fromey's book Reflections is her remembrances of George Spahn and the ranch kitchen and everyone spending time together and the cowboys and their idiosyncrasies. Well, one of the employees, Wendy Buckley, apparently every year would trim their beards and cut their hair and give them shaves and different things. But barber these really unkempt cowboys who were, you read back and these kind of guys, they just don't take care of themselves. It doesn't occur to them. Maybe later I'll do, you know what I mean? Like, I'll get something decent to eat later. Doesn't matter. I've got some coffee and these cigarettes are fine. And these guys, are they shaving? Are they getting nice haircuts? So Wendy Buckley, who was later a victim of an assault, wasn't she?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Ooh. Twilighters, please, in the comments, top Twilighters, we might have a little something for you. If you can tell us first and most detailed description of who Wendy Buckley was and what unfortunate occurrence did happen to Ms. Buckley one afternoon, and for what reason and by whom.
Who jaw-jacked her?
Whoa! Anyway, this guy can't keep around. There's no bag he won't let the cat out of. So, but around this time, also in Christmas of 1967, the one known as Blue, Miss Sandra Good, she was photographed sitting on a couch, and I printed this out and didn't bring it down.
It's okay.
I know. It's a rather attractive photo. I recommend you pull it up right now, Twilighters, while you're Googling. She's sitting on this couch at a holiday party with Joel Pooh. Allegedly, the relationship was becoming serious and traveled to meet each other's parents. I find that interesting. Sandy's not one to really do that kind of thing. Shortly thereafter, Sandy broke off their engagement and became a full-time member of the family. And she more famously, the reason why we remember his name is the often misnomered our friend Mr. Beausoleil, Ivan Beausoleil. They called him Pooh.
Yeah,
Now
Ivan
you
Pugh.
talked to him, right? Pugh.
Yeah, great guy. Owns a restaurant down in Arizona. He's just getting started now. I believe it's called the Alligator Grill.
Formerly of Dallas,
Yeah.
Texas. He had a really nice
His
restaurant there.
biological parents are Bobby Beausoleil and Sandra Good.
Incredible.
And he was raised by a amazing family that also lived on Spawn Ranch, the Friedmans, Holly Friedman and Farmer John, aka Party Friedman, and just was integrated into a beautiful family. They had other kids that lived on the ranch, JJ, John Jr., which Charlie later mentioned when he was in prison as reflecting real strong upon his father.
These are some of the things these are the people I would love to talk to.
So he was raised in a very normal family. I mean, they moved back up here to the Bay Area. John was a artist, did really beautiful etchings and paintings that you can find even now on eBay for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really nice investment.
I'm happy for this guy, young guy. And I mean, he was raised by a family that he probably had a lot of great Christmases with that family.
Oh, absolutely. But you think about Pugh, poor Joel, like, man, the way he's been remembered in these Manson books is just really pretty sad. I would like to know more about his story, just in terms of, what really happened, because no one really gives a shit about people like that. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. According to the record, he committed suicide in England, but there's been speculation over the years, was it suicide or was he killed? Scotland Yard has closed the book on the whole thing, put it to bed. And
there was the window and the way that the circumstances of the thing.
I don't have a really strong feeling on it either way. I just know that he wasn't biologically related to Ivan, but that according to the story and the narrative, Sandra asked for his last name for her child.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask you about that, because I had heard that when Ivan was coming to be, that she wanted a last name, and that she had approached him, and that's where this confusion began. And now, what did he say? Because I don't think he was into it.
I'm assuming So take it for a grain of salt, but
Sure.
that he said no because he knew it wasn't his son. And for whatever reason, Sandra decided to still name the boy that, and he always kept that name. I mean, that's still his name to this day. Like, he didn't change his name to Friedman, even though he was adopted by them, but yeah, I just,
I've had
I
that,
don't know.
it's just an interesting thing because you think about that's pretty cool, man. I mean, if you're into historical lore, I suppose, it'd be pretty neat. Ivan
Mhm.
Bosley, but he's his own man. That's really cool. It just is indicative of, hey, man, how life plays itself out is all good. Everything's nice. But yeah, I've only heard the nicest things about him. But that holiday leads us to 1968, the
Yeah.
following year. Dun-dun-dun.
And I just have a couple small ones here. Back in 1968 in December, Candace Bergen was living at the Cielo Drive house with Terry Melcher. Now, Candace hung these Christmas lights around the property, and we later see in photographs of Sharon Tate in late July and early August 1969 that these Christmas lights are still up. They're still adorning the split rail front fence around the perimeter of the property. She's photographed with them. And even when the murders happened, these Christmas lights were still up.
Right.
Yeah. Also during this Christmas of 1968, Tex Watson took a retreat kind of from the family. He left the family at Spawn Ranch and he went and moved in with his friend, David Neal. Now, David Neal and Tex had been drafted together into the military. Tex failed his physical, but David Neal actually was, I guess, enlisted.
Yeah, he got inducted.
Yeah, inducted. So Tex went and spent this next month or so living in Pasadena, or an area possibly like Highland Park, with David Neal's brother and also David Neal's girlfriend, which Tex ended up having a relationship.
You don't even have to say it. You just know
Yeah.
that guy, he's just such an unsavory fellow.
So this woman that we speak of, we know very well as Rosina Kroner.
Yeah.
So they move into an apartment together in Hollywood, and they start a drug dealing operation. So
that's how he came into possession of Rosina.
Yeah. So he lives with Rosina until I believe March or April of 1969, when he
left her first as collateral on a dope deal.
No, he would move back to the family first, but yeah, later.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So that's where Tex was during Christmas of that year. Also, that Christmas Day in 1968, Sharon Tate's film, The Wrecking Crew, was released in Canada, which is definitely my favorite movie that Sharon did. For someone that was constantly looked upon as like a sex symbol, that in some ways was demeaned. I don't know, like
even her husband, the way Roman spoke about her was like she was just a kitten.
What I like about The Wrecking Crew is it actually brings out her comedic side. And she plays a very cute character that's just kind of goofy and funny. She stars alongside Dean Martin, where they play a couple of spies over in the UK. And if you haven't seen it, I really suggest it. You could probably find it for free on one of these.
Oh yeah, it's very Austin Powers, baby.
Yeah. And then lastly, I want to say later, after Steve Grogan was released from prison, he was a member of several different bands. And one of the bands that he was a part of for a while was called the Christmas Jug Band.
Ooh.
And their music is available online, so you can check it out.
The Christmas.
I won't dox him and give you his the name that he goes by now, but you could probably find that band's music and check it out. It's pretty good, very seasonal.
No, I still think that I think he's going to talk to us. We don't have any hate for Steve. Got some pointed questions here and there. Nothing serious, but why did you bust that dude in the back of the head with a fucking, well, anyway,
He's only about 20 minutes away from us now, so we'd
but the
love to get him.
The Christmas jug band. I mean, who doesn't love holiday themed memories? I mean, just good Lord, what a great name, Christmas jug band. Like, come here, Mrs. Claus. We're gonna have us a time. We really appreciate you joining us, Twilighters, on this new holiday tradition. It's fun. Break out with your scrolls. Telleth thine stories with your families. You know, really fun stuff here, kids. Want to thank you, as always, for liking, for subscribing, for supporting this channel. We're not going to make any promises, but some stuff's coming that I think you may be pretty excited about.
And I'd just like to give a special thank you to all of our viewers and our producer, Alex, David, for opening up his home. And it's so many great fans out there that contribute in the comments. They're in the group No Sense Makes Sense, giving us nice feedback.
Really?
I want to give a shout out to our girl Margarita, and I hope that she and her family have a blessed new year.
Dude, subscriber number 100 starting to cut off.
Yeah.
Margarita!
Yeah.
Dude, seriously, subscriber number 100, our dear friend. I've known her for some years. We'll tell some stories about her. She coincidentally met Tex Watson and his family and saw Charlie. And different
Shout
people
out, young lady.
Like, dude, she's awesome. But yeah.
But yeah, we want to highlight a bunch of you in the future. And so we might make this a regular thing on episodes.
It's so flattering, you guys. Like, you're involved in what we're doing. Light these comments up because, like I say, I want to send some goodies out. Let's talk about who these people are. That's my favorite part of all these different sites, you know, Manson blog and these different things, is all the community. We can have some fun here. Let's just keep it lively and enjoyable. There's no hate here. So please enjoy one another's company. Let's have some fun.
Sharing is caring.
Light it up, folks. Twilight. Twilighters, are you with me? Can I get a